Hey everyone, welcome to Barter Hordes. My name is Robert, and this is day 2 of my series on March Malt Madness, starting with 32 Scotch single malts and gradually eliminating one each day until we get down to my favorite by the end of March. Today is an all Islay affair. I promise these aren't all going to be from Islay. It just happened to be that way when I randomized the list. They just happened to show up at the top of the list. But there are some from every region of Scotland on the total list. But these two are both from Islay, which, if you're familiar with Scotch, is known for its peated Scotch, its smoky Scotch. And both of these are peated, and this is kind of a peat lovers episode, I guess. The first one is Bowmore 12-year-old, and the other one is the Laphroaig Quarter Cask. I chose the Quarter Cask rather than the Laphroaig 10-year, which is kind of their standard introductory bottling, because I've had both of them and have liked both of them, but for some reason I just like the Quarter Cask a little bit more, so I put that in the field instead of the 10-year. The Bowmore is, and these are both available, believe it or not, in North Carolina. Miracles never cease. This is $70 in North Carolina, and the Quarter Cask is $75, so very little difference in price there. The Bowmore is bottled at the bare minimum, 40% ABV, which I find a little disappointing. I wish it was a little bit higher. The Quarter Cask, however, is bottled at 48% alcohol by volume, so it's a little bit more punchy, and there's a little bit more of a there's more room for them to develop some of the flavors. So on the Bowmore, this is the first time I think I've had any from that distillery. It's the little lesser known of the Islay distilleries. The big ones, of course, are Laphroaig and Ardbeg and Lagavulin and Bunnahabhain. Bowmore, though, seems to get overlooked a lot, and so I experimented. This is the first time I bought any. So on the first smell of Bowmore, you're going to get some of that peat right away, but it's not as strong as you'd expect from some of the Islas. Sometimes you open an Islay and before you even pour it, you can smell it from across the room. It's not the way with the Bowmore. It's a little bit more subtle. There's a little bit more sweetness in the Bowmore. There's almost maybe a little bit of lemon and a little bit of honey come out once you get past that first initial hint of smoke. But it's a very pleasant nose, but it's not a very powerful nose. The Laphroaig is known for being among the peatiest of all the Scotch whiskies, and people make fun of it. There was even a website sponsored by Laphroaig where people could go post the most outrageous tasting notes. People would post things like, it smells like a hospital on fire, or it tastes like a mermaid's bathwater, things like that. Really ridiculous tasting notes, but trying to get across that this is a very unique whiskey. A lot of people find Laphroaig a little bit medicinal. I read somewhere, somebody was describing it, that it smelled a little bit like insulin smells. And I've been a diabetic for 30 years, and I've been on insulin forever. And I thought, that's just crazy. And so the next day I went and I spilled just a little bit on my finger to get a good whiff of it. And that's exactly what it smells like. So you learn something new every day, even though I've been taking insulin shots forever. That Laphroaig can smell a little bit like iodine or a medicinal sense. The peat is much more pronounced on this one, but there's still some sweetness there. There's some vanilla almost. Both of these are really great aromas. All right, let's taste the Bowmore first. That's interesting. One of the notes that I read online is that some people will get almost like a little hint of dark chocolate And I had never thought about that before, but now that that has been put in my brain, I can see where that little note is coming from. It's really nice. The honey is more pronounced when you taste it than when you smell it. It's very easy to taste though. It's not powerful. The peat is there and you get the peat come back a little bit at the tail end, but it's not really super strong peat. It's not the kind that people crinkle up their face and run for the hills. It's not like that at all. The Laphroaig might be. Now the Laphroaig is, first of all, the Bowmore is aged 12 years, mostly in ex-bourbon barrels is really all I could gain from the website. They say that occasionally they have some casks up from other types, but the vast majority of the ones used are ex-bourbon barrels. The Laphroaig has a double barrel approach. It's aged for about, there's no age statement on the whiskey itself, but it's aged for about 5 or 6 years in ex-bourbon barrels. And then they shift it into quarter casks, much smaller casks. And the reason they do that is that, first of all, it's a traditional thing. It's going back, harkening back to their history, but it also gives the whiskey much more contact with the wood during that secondary finishing. And that brings out some of the flavors like the vanillas and so on, the sweetness. I'm a big fan of double oaked things. Bourbons, everything. And so when I saw that this was double oaked, I thought, oh, I'll give that a try. And sure enough, it was nice. Immediately, there's a much wider range of flavor sensations going on, probably because it is bottled at 48% as opposed to 40%. But it's not overpowering or spicy. There's a little bit of spice on the sides of my tongue, but nothing like the pepper that I got, for instance, last night on the Kilchoman. This is much more balanced than that, but it's very, very nice. It's as good as I remember. Okay, this is going to be another pretty easy decision for me. The quarter cask is moving on into round 2. I'm going to say goodbye to the Bowmore and probably finish this bottle later this week. But I do like it. I think if you're looking for maybe an introduction to Islay peated scotches, this is a little bit easier to dip your toes in the water than going full on with a Laphroaig or an Ardbeg. But for a range of flavors and for that extra taste sensation of coming out through that quarter cask, the double oaking of those casks, the Laphroaig is really, really nice. So Laphroaig's going to go on. Bowmore's going to be eliminated. So we've got one Campbelltown from last night and now an Islay from tonight. Tomorrow's matchup is going to be Highland Park 12 year versus Glen Scotia 15 year. I think Highland Park might have been one of my very first Scotch experiments. So I've had several experiences with that. The Glen Scotia is relatively new to me. If you've had either of these or both of these, tell me what you think. Does the Laphroaig just set your teeth on edge, or are you a fan like I am? Have you had the Bowmore? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye, everybody.